Hi everyone. It's been a while. I've done a lot in these couple of months. And one thing that I really want to share with you guys now, is first aid. So I decided to create a first aid introductory course, to have like basic like online YouTube videos introducing first aid to people who are interested, right? Because I have recently completed a St. John's ambulance first aid course. So I'm technically a trained first aid administrator now. And so I decided to apply for this professional course because, like, for this first aid course, because if you watch my channel, you should know that I'm very passionate in science, especially in medical related areas. And I feel like first aid is extremely important and can potentially save someone's life, right? I find it very meaningful and I feel like it's not a very big sacrifice of time. So, which is why I decided to create this course, right? This course is only an introductory course. If you want to get a certificate and train yourself professionally as a first aider, if you're interested, if you want to help the society out, I highly encourage you to apply for a course from a first aid organization, right? But this is just a basic introduction to tell you more about first aid for people who are interested, right? And so I'm going to start with the first lesson today, which is what is first aid, like introducing what first aid is, right? So yeah, let's go. So let me start off with the definition of first aid, right? Because well, I looked online, I looked for many different sources, and all of the definitions are different because there is no definite definition of first aid. So, for example, I found this definition by the United States Department of Labor, which says that first aid refers to medical attention that is usually administered immediately after the injury occurs and at the location where it occurred. It often consists of a one-time short-term treatment and requires little technology or training to administer. Um, and another definition I found is by the Merriam-Webster dictionary. It says that first aid is emergency care or treatment given to an ill or injured person before regular medical aid can be obtained. So obviously the first one's a way longer and more detailed. The second one's a bit more generic. But based on these two definitions, you guys can probably um, guess like or make your own definition, craft your own definition based upon these two and few more definitions that you can search up. And just keep in mind the goal, the definition of first aid whenever you're trying to help someone. So yeah. Now let me go into one of the more important things of first aid, right? The aim, the goal of first aid. I like to remember it as the three P's: preserve, prevent, and promote. So the first one is to preserve life, right? Because your first aim in first aid is to preserve life by carrying out emergency first aid procedures. For example, if you open a victim's airway or perform CPR, that counts as preserving life. Preserving life should always be the overall aim of all first aiders. And remember, though, this includes your own life. So you should never put yourself or others in danger. This is why the first stage of first aid is always assessing a victim, conducting a risk assessment, making sure there's nothing dangerous to you or to bystanders or to the injured. If a situation is too dangerous to approach, you should stay back and call for professional help. And I'll talk about a bit more about that in later in this video and in the next video, and also about like the initial inspections. So the um, second aim of first aid is to prevent the injury from worsening, or you could also say prevent deterioration. So basically, for example, if a victim with a broken limb um, wants to move around, you have to ask them to stay still, and put padding around the injury to prevent the fracture from moving and causing further injury or pain. In addition, this aim also includes to prevent further injuries. So, as I mentioned just now, you should make sure that the area is as safe as possible and remove any potential dangers. If removing danger is not possible, you should attempt to remove the injured from the danger or call for help. And finally, to promote recovery. So you can promote recovery by arranging prompt medical help. For example, calling 911. And in addition, simple first aid can significantly affect the long-term recovery of an injury. For example, by quickly cooling a burn, it will reduce the risk of long-term scarring and will encourage early healing. So let me talk about some first aid organizations now. Depending on where you are, some notable first aid organizations are the Red Cross, St. John's. St. John's is where I got my cert. The National Safety Council, which is in America, and other government courses in your respective governments. Once again, I highly encourage you to get yourself professionally trained in first aid, as it is very meaningful and it can be very important sometimes. So, what to do when you arrive on the scene of injury? So first of all, as I mentioned just now, you have to evaluate the site of accident, especially for any dangers, right? First of all, can you contact the injured safely? For example, if they got hit by a car, they're still in the middle of a busy highway. You're not like as a first aider, don't run out onto the highway because you might also get hit by a car, right? And second of all, you have to figure out the reason why the injured person is injured. For example, they were drowning in this river that has very quick currents or etc. Then after finding out the reason of the injury, then you will know what you can do and what you can't. For example, you can't jump into that river because you might also get injured or drown in that very fast, very quick flowing river, right? And third of all, the number of people who are injured, because in mass injury scenes of, for example, a fire or etc., there might be people who um who are like have more severe injuries and some others who only have like a slight burn or etc. So the finding out the number of injured people will help you to organize, as well as the age of the injured people and the prediction of the injury, right? Because if you predict that this person's unconscious and the other person only has a minor burn, then obviously you have to treat the unconscious first. So after that, you should perform the initial inspection, which I'll talk about next time, and also provide treatment based on the situation, and remember to call emergency services. So let me talk about something that I feel like is pretty important. It's called shock, right? Because shock is a life-threatening condition that occurs when the body is not getting enough blood flow. Because the lack of blood flow means that the cells and organs do not get enough oxygen and nutrients to function properly. And many organs can be damaged as a result. And so why am I talking about this, right? Because, well, in the future, I'm going to talk about shock specifically, right? But here, I feel like it's worth mentioning in the basics, like in the introduction to first aid, because the many injured people will experience shock, right? Or experience a psychological response. It's very normal. It's very common at injury scenes because, well, obviously you worry about what happened, etc. Like the injured patient will worry. So it might lead to shock in more extreme situations, right? And so what are some signs of shock? First of all, an increase in pulse and breathing, headache, sweat and shuddering, muscle fatigue, vomit, weak concentration, and like just the facial expressions, for example, like looking shocked, looking worried, looking angry, etc. All of these can be signs of shock. And so it's very important to provide psychological support to people who are experiencing shock. So here are some ways to provide psychological support. First of all, it's very important to communicate your intentions to them, or if they're unconscious, to their family members and trust ones, because it's very important to let them know what you're doing. For example, I'm going to help you bandage here first, and make sure to get their consent, right? And second of all, you have to confirm their safety. Tell them that they're safe, they're in good hands, they're going to be okay, right? And also very important, you have to comfort, you have to calm them, you have to make them because if they're not calm, if they're panicking, they will be more likely to get shock, and it won't be a benefit to them, right? And so it's very important to comfort them, or to let them know that they're going to be okay, and to understand them, to fulfill their requests, even though if their requests are like not are pretty insane, or like are not like you have to use your own judgment about what request that you should fulfill, right? Because if it impedes your first aid work, if it threatens anyone, then you have to not grant that request. And finally, but most importantly, remember to stay by their side, check on them regularly, ask them how they're doing, if they're feeling okay, especially um, uh, to provide comfort and calm to them and let them know that someone is taking care of them. So yeah, a quick recap of what I told you this lesson. It's pretty basic, pretty simple. First of all, I told you about the definition of first aid. I told you about how there's no definite definition, right? But it's all similar, right? And I also told you about the aims, the goals of first aid, the 3 Ps, right? To preserve, prevent, and promote. And also, I told you about what to do when arriving on the scene, and also the signs of shock and what the psychological support you can provide the injured. So next lesson, we'll cover a lot more about the basics of first aid, about first aid procedures, about the initial inspection, plus the acronym DRABC, the detailed inspections and the acronym sample, signs of life, recording the inspection, determining the injury, arranging hospitalization, and some protection equipment. And so yeah, that's it for all today. Remember, if you like this video, to leave a like, to subscribe, to wait and watch my other videos. And yeah, Zachary from What's Up signing off.